So once we are vaccinated, what do you think that should mean for us?
Well, it depends what you mean by vaccinated, obviously, Peter. There'll have to be some level, hopefully, and I'm not the expert on what level, but some level over which we can start to reopen to the world, where we can take international students, where people can hopefully freely leave this country, which they can't do right now. It's quite extraordinary. So that's the goal, obviously, and as I say, I'm not going to set that level. I don't know.
But what about domestically?
I'll
first
take
of all,
advice on that.
Let's go domestically. So Ms Hrdlicka said yesterday that once 5 million out of 6 million adults are vaccinated, so it's upwards of 80%, about 83%, then we can look at opening up. Is that a fair enough percentage, you think?
Well, as I say, Peter, I'll take the advice. I'm sure Ms Hrdlicka is taking the advice of her experts. Something around that figure sounds about right, but I myself don't know and can't hit the precise number for you. In terms of domestically, we are really opened up. There's not too many restrictions left on this country, thankfully, and hopefully we won't see more state border lockdowns. But yes, the continuing closure of Australia to the world does come at a cost to us, and that's not sustainable in the future. We have to find a way to reopen to the world at some point in the next year or two.
Well, when that happens, would you be a supporter of home quarantine for those vaccinated?
Look, it depends how it goes. I mean, I hope that we don't need quarantine at all eventually. That would hopefully be the end goal. I hope in 2 or 3 years' time we've got no quarantine. But before we get to that stage, there might be a point in between. Before we had the hotel quarantine, we did have home quarantine. It didn't last very long. That was at the very early stages of the pandemic. So perhaps as on the way out of the pandemic, we'll return to something like that. But it's a little bit too early to say. We've still got a while to go to get to somewhere around 80%. And I'm sure governments will start working out those protocols in the months ahead.
Yeah, that's going to take a while. You're right about that. What about these comments yesterday, Matt? The Virgin boss, Jayne Hrdlicka, had said that, I mean, and they want, it's in the context is that they want the borders opened up as soon as possible. She said some people may die, but it will be smaller than the flu. I mean, she is stating a fact there, but a lot of people have jumped onto that this morning. What do you make of those comments? There they are on our screen now.
Yeah, look, I think those that have jumped on her are doing so a little opportunistically. Obviously, Ms Hrdlicka put it very, very starkly there, but as you say, that is the facts. And I don't exactly know how the coronavirus will go over time, but if the coronavirus continues to spread around the world for years to come, and most health experts think it's something we have to live with now, it'll be here probably forever, then eventually when we open up, even if we ease some restrictions, there will be the unfortunate situation that some people, even with the vaccine, because it's not 100%, some people might get symptoms and ultimately die, just as they do from the flu and other diseases. So, look, yes, the comments yesterday were starkly put, but it probably is about time we have this conversation because we cannot stay under the doona forever. And if the coronavirus is out and around the world forever, then unfortunately, like other airborne diseases, it will cause fatalities in some instances. Now, hopefully for us, we're very lucky that we get to a stage where we are well vaccinated and the risks, as Ms Hrdlicka said, or the fatalities here are lower or almost as low as the flu. That would be the ideal. So let's hope we can push towards that. But we shouldn't tell each other fairy tales. We're not necessarily the world. We can't wave a magic wand and make all deaths go away. No government can do that.
Is there a point, do you think, where once vaccination has reached a certain level that you can let the virus rip?
Well, again, I probably wouldn't put it in those stark terms, but the goal here obviously is to get to the vaccination, get the herd immunity up to a certain level such that the coronavirus becomes one of many other viruses that exist in our community that, as I say, sometimes and very unfortunately can cause fatalities, but are not something that causes us all to shut down and change our lives because of. Life is risk. Life is risk. I'll jump in a car later today. That's a risk. Every time we jump on a plane, that's a risk. And yes, going outside, and there's a risk that you catch something that causes you great harm to your life. Even now, we've thankfully not had the coronavirus, but there are still people dying of different diseases in our community, unfortunately. So we cannot reduce risk to zero. The idea here, though, is use our lucky position to reduce risk to a background level almost that doesn't disrupt our daily lives.
Hey, the Prime Minister yesterday, he's thrown his support behind that quarantine facility on the outskirts of Melbourne, but he shot down that quarantine facility in Toowoomba in the state of Queensland. Do you think he should rethink that, or do you support his position on it?
No, the Prime Minister's right here. I don't think it's right to put quarantine facilities away from major health services. So Toowoomba itself, I believe, only has 30 or 40 ICU beds. I know here in Rockhampton we only have 30. Toowoomba would have about the same. I believe I was talking to someone the other day. And so if there were to be an outbreak in a regional city like Toowoomba, they've got very limited ability to handle that. And it would very quickly overwhelm their health services. So I think it's right and proper to put quarantine closer to where hospital services are, so that in the case of an outbreak, that can be dealt with and managed well, as we have with any hotel quarantine outbreaks. So that is the right approach. I mean, I don't see the need. These facilities don't need to go out in some rural or remote area. They don't take up a huge amount of land. All of our major cities would have land available to do something like this. So if the Queensland government's serious about doing an open air quarantine facility, why don't they sit down and talk and work out where the best place for that is, rather than inflexibly here put forward a proposal which I don't think makes sense and certainly doesn't have the support of the locals on the ground in Toowoomba.
Okay.